politician that, is constantly in your mind, but how do you do that? How do you get people on board for what we're trying to do? Just going to very quickly mention 2 of your criteria and the actual challenge and difficulty in terms of delivering those services and making sure people are on board and getting them engaged in that and wanting to do the right thing and go the way we all want to go like that. So particularly you had waste and circular economy as one of your 12 criteria. Obviously as a local authority, that waste collection is a service that we provide directly, unlike some of the other things Simon mentioned there around transport and stuff, which is a more complex service provision. We've got mandatory food waste collection across the UK by March 26. Obviously, lots of areas do that already, but certainly not here on Merseyside at the moment. That's going to be a massive change in how we actually deliver that service. But also quite a culture shock, I think, to people that we're actually, coming down to that level of separating out your waste. We live in a city where 1/3 of people do not recycle anything. 1/3 of people, I'm sure most people in this room will be quite shocked by that, because of course we all do the right thing, and probably a lot of the people we know, of course we recycle, of course we do home composting and all those other kind of things. But as a service provider, I can assure you 1/3 of people are not recycling at all. And at the moment in your purple bins, from the residential waste, 1/3 of that is food waste. If we can obviously get that out, that makes a massive difference. And also we need to start delivering very locally, in terms of at the moment we don't have the anaerobic digesters and so on Merseyside at all to deal with that, but then we'd be able to produce the gas to do the collection and so on, and reduce all that. We are now looking at the energy from waste, incineration being the most polluting of ways of producing energy, since thankfully we stopped burning coal the other day, but at the moment we're still sending in a train, thankfully not by road, but these millions of tonnes of waste up to the northeast where it gets burnt. So doing that and sort of engaging people in that is a massive, massive challenge for me as a local councillor, but particularly as a cabinet member who has to deliver that service there. And the other one I was going to particularly speak about was on biodiversity and nature. Simon's slightly picked the post there by putting up that fabulous picture of Urban Greenup, which is a fantastic EU-funded project. Thankfully, we've still got that money. And yeah, that's done some brilliant things which have actually been researched in collaboration with academics and so on. So those small-scale projects are actually being researched. But we've actually done some really good work in our city. I think I saw Richard from Scouts Flathouse coming in before, in terms of planting wildflowers across the city. And some really good. There has been some good engagement in some of that work, although it's been very locally based, slightly erratically produced across the city. Because it's been down to local councils or local people taking that initiative, but there has been some great engagement in that. But of course we've also tried to stop cutting so much of our grass over the last couple of summers and letting our parks become much more naturalised. But again, there's a big pushback on that. A lot of people don't like us not cutting the grass, and they think all grass should be cut every week throughout the summer, whether it's in the park, the grass verge or whatever. And obviously as a service provider, again, there's a balance there. Some areas should, be left to grow, and there's some that maybe we do need to cut. We need to relook at some of that. But as a politician, there's a massive pushback on some of that in some areas of the city, and obviously that has a big impact on us as democratic representatives and how we do that. So how do we get those people to kind of want to do what we really need to do? I'll stop talking.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's just hold it.
Just hold it if you want. Yeah, that's probably as easy if I'm passing it on. So I just wanted to pick up on the discussions about the role of citizens and also climate justice and energy justice. So I've been involved in the cooperative movement for over 15 years in and around some of these issues, both as a resident of this city and in my day job. And the co-ops are all about people taking matters into their own hands to some degree, so rather than having things done to them, which I think quite often public programmes end up being things done to people, it's done with or by. I think that's really important because with issues like, say, building retrofit, which is my particular field, specialism, it ain't going to happen unless people feel comfortable with it, and especially not in people's homes. Homes are a bit weird in a lot of respects, but in the particular respect when we're talking about energy, it's the place where you live and you do your washing up and you do, potter about day to day. It's very domestic, small scale, intimate, and has lots of emotional attachments. But it's also actually part of the national energy infrastructure. So it's got this kind of dual role, which we need to think about how we make that work to the good, really. And as Simon pointed out, if you are coming along and doing things to people, or if you're coming along and people aren't engaged or understanding of what it is that's being proposed, then you're going to get what in the trade is called refusals. Though I have to say, actually, I don't think people are that daft in turning down hydrogen. I think hydrogen is a very silly idea for competing, but that's a whole other thing. And I think as part of that as well, so we often talk about fuel poverty in that context as well, but that feels like it's quite a passive thing. That's a condition that you kind of sit in and you are fuel poor. I think it's much more helpful to talk about, reframe it as energy justice, because this is about justice and fairness, which obviously was talked about a lot in Valencia, and we've recognised that that's how thinking about things in that way really changes the game. I also just wanted to say some stuff about how, so the physical work is really important. I'm an architect by training. I get into specifying different materials and getting excited about heat pumps and all that kind of stuff. That's all really important, but there's also been quite a lot of discussion in the earlier sessions about data and about baselining and data and where the data is coming from. Ultimately, that data is coming from people as well. So if we can work out a way of having processes that collate and make use of that data that aren't purely extractive, that people are actually have some involvement in, some engagement in, some control over, because I think that is a big issue where this data kind of being, you get it on retrofit programs where loads of data is kind of sucked out of a neighbourhood after it's had a retrofit program, but the people who live there maybe don't get to hear about the report that was written by the university 3 years later. Maybe there are different ways we should be communicating that. And then finally, I think the stuff around kind of trying to bring it together, really, it was mentioned, the Energy Communities Programme was mentioned in Valencia. That's a really interesting thing that I think is worth, sadly, we are no longer in the EU, but it's quite a well-established EU programme around citizen engagement in the energy system. We could learn lots and lots from it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see what goes on, but with things like local area energy planning, which is now coming in, and the local power plan, which is being proposed by the new government, that's an opportunity to put some structure around some of those ideas and join up the dots.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's my turn. So I think first of all, I just want to say thank you very much, Ellie, for organizing this wonderful series, and also thank you to the speakers, Francisca and Simon. It's two wonderful talks, and also thanks to the audience as well. Making it a full house, that's very impressive. I think over on the talks of the two of you, I have 3 points of reflection, if I may. The first one is just realize that engagement is super important. Like your motto there, as Francisca, on a mission together, right? So I think we should be all on a mission together. I think that's really important. And then the second point of reflection really is about, so we realize engagement is so important, but how can we actually make it work? I'm very fortunate to have been working with Liverpool City Council, Cabal Authority, also the other 5 local authorities in the regions, and on using innovation for sustainable transportation, also for engagement. So I have the chance to see how hard they have been working and to make the region better and more sustainable. I'll give you some example. For example, we are very unique in the UK that we actually, the public owned train fleet, £500 million investment, right? And we can actually make it designed in the way that it benefits the citizens the best. And then there is a consultation going on about a massive program that is called the Tidal Project, which basically try to get energy from the tide. And they claim it's the world's largest tidal power program, and if it's successful, it will generate energy for about 1 million homes. So you see there's a region that the authority that have been working together. But I think what we're lacking now really is how we can engage the citizen and how we make the citizens realize and how we can work together and co-design it. And I think that's where probably working together like with Valencia, you have excellent experience on that, probably will really help. And that brings me to the third point of reflection, really building on the second point, but also for one specific area close to my heart, because it's one of the areas I have been doing research about. And that is the area that Simon mentioned regarding shipping. And as you have seen there, the shipping even sometimes fall under the radar, but it still has a huge amount of emission in the slide that Simon mentioned. It's roughly about 40% of the emissions of Liverpool. And so I know I have been working again with the port, with the industry. I know they also have been working really hard to try to decarbonize, because the industry as a whole is lagging a little bit behind compared to the other industry. And again, that is probably an area where we together can work, because I understand Valencia as well, you have a major port, is the second largest in Spain, but we have one of the largest in the UK as well. And both ports contribute massively to the economy. And then perhaps there might be ways for us to work together and then try to explore the way to help support and help the shipping industry to reduce emission. And that brings to maybe my last point, is that even that we are sadly not in the EU, we are still eligible to participate in many of the EU funding programs. There is still opportunity for us to work together. For us, from Liverpool University, I myself have been participating in several programs, EU funded projects, working with European partners as well. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I feel like I've got to start by saying thank you very much for including you today. For me, I think what struck me so immensely by the way that you're talking was that it was so clear and it was so compelling, and that we didn't delve into, thank goodness we didn't delve into audits and data capture. It was a compelling story that was really clear, that was emotional, that talked very proudly about the kind of active citizenry and how you're mobilising them, and I think that's the real lesson for me. I think as somebody who's trying to deal with, what did you describe it as, heritage building that leaks like a sieve, our sort of social and civic structures are so complicated that actually mobilising support and mobilising help to deal with really critical infrastructure issues is really difficult, because I don't think we've got anywhere near that sense of, and I don't mean this in an offensive way, but we haven't got anywhere near that sense of clear leadership about, as a city, we are going to do this and we're going to deliver it, and we're going to deliver it together. So thank you so much for that, because I thought it was a real clarion call. And then maybe it's just because of the nature of who I am or what I have to do, I just couldn't help but wonder, how much did that cost and where did the money come from? So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.